Hi, so today I'm going to be talking about Sweden's environmental impact assessment protocol and legislation. So, we're going to start with looking at some legislations, acts, codes, and some agencies. The Swedish Environmental Protection Agency is a public agency that deals with environmental issues. It was established in 1967 and was the first agency of its kind in the world at the time. It executes actions on behalf of the EU, so European Union, the government of Sweden, as well as internationally. It works with the Environmental Protection Act, which was created to allow it to prevent pollution, and it was introduced in 1995. With that also comes the Swedish Environmental Code, which was adopted in 1999 and basically transposes some other acts. SEPA also operates with the Integrated Pollution Prevention and Control Directive, or IPPC, which was introduced in 1996. So these are some diagrams that kind of show the pathways needed to be taken to basically be approved for any environmentally damaging project that could happen. So we have the Ministry of Environment, the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, administrative boards, municipalities, local environment and public health committees, and land and environmental courts. So all these work together basically to approve or deny if a project is going to happen or not. So the Swedish Environmental Code is used to protect natural resources and promote sustainable development. It especially relies on the precautionary and product choice principles. So the precautionary principle basically wants you to take measures to prevent negative health and environmental side effects when you go on with the project. Product choice refers to hazardous and chemical products need to be avoided basically when you want to go forward with the project. So anything that's least damaging needs to be used. There's also other acts and principles which are also important to be used, which is best possible technology. And all it means is that the best possible technology needs to be used to make things happen. Resource management principle basically wants to ensure that raw materials will be conserved as much as possible, and also it favors renewable energy to be used. The polluter pays principle basically means that any company that's going to cause environmental damage needs to pay for the preventative measures that need to be taken to basically soften the blow to the environment. Localization principle pretty much means that a location needs to be picked for the project that least basically disrupts the health of people and environment. And there's a couple other things that environmental impact assessors or companies need to comply with, which is burden of proof, meaning that they need to basically prove that they've followed the code and complied with it. And knowledge requirement, which means that they need to be aware of all possible negative side effects that can happen if their company goes ahead with their project. So the EIA directive basically oversees environmentally hazardous activities and projects as well, including waterway operations. There's a number of acts that regulate other kinds of projects beyond what is covered in the environmental code. So these are the Road Act, Pipelines Act, Railway Act, Electricity Act, and Planning and Building Act. So which authorities really get to deny or approve projects? Basically, you need to look at kind of environmentally hazardous activities, and based on the level of the activity, you can determine who's going to be looking at the project. So large projects or A activities that can have a really high environmentally hazardous impact are reviewed by central authorities, which can include the government or national authorities, or it can be reviewed by the land and environment courts, of which are 5 in Sweden. Some examples of basically A-level activities include oil refineries, pulp and paper plants, and also iron and steel plants. So these would be causing like a lot of negative impacts on the environment. Medium projects, or B activities, are reviewed by country administrative boards, and there are 21 administration boards in Sweden, but only 12 of them really have the authority to make decisions regarding this subject. So some examples of these activities can include, early for the B, is basically large food industry activities, combustion plants, and even textile industry. And small projects, or C activities, are reviewed by the local environmental and public health committee. And some of these activities can include combustion plants and even like gas stations or dry cleaners. So this is a little diagram basically showing the general outlook of how a company can apply for a permit. So first you write up the permit, then you need to consult with either local and regional authorities, the Environmental Protection Agency, the public, and other authorities. The application then is sent to the environmental court. And within the environmental application, you need to have a lot of details describing how you're going to make the project happen, like the technologies you're going to use. And you're also going to have to include a lot of alternative processes to the main project activity. After that, the environmental court sends the application to other authorities. The authorities then suggest improvements to the company. So the company improves the application, then sends it again. If it continues on further, then the court can decide if the application is favorable or not, and it puts it on a public display, basically, for the public to weigh in their option. And it also asks the authorities again for their opinion. So once the authorities give their opinion on the application, they give a written statement to suggest basically the conditions that the company needs to comply with. So the company basically replies to the options. There's another public hearing held, and after that, the permit is either issued or denied. So for an example to show you how the environmental impact assessment works, I picked to talk about the Ostlänken high-speed railway. The Swedish Transport Administration wanted to add basically a new system of tunnels under the city of Stockholm to expand the railway system for basically just commuter trains. So in gray here, you can see the existing railway, but the green is what they want to add. So basically, the system description is they wanted a main tunnel for the railway that would run from the south to the north of Stockholm. And there would also be service tunnels connected to the main tunnel. The railway was supposed to be 160 kilometers long, and it could go up to speeds of 250 kilometers an hour. So to create this railway system, the following basically points were required. So a railway plan that was constructed according to the Railway Act, and also a plan according to the Environmental Act, because building this tunnel would cause disturbance to groundwater levels. So the Transport Administration applied for a permit according to the Environmental Code for one of the service tunnels and presented documentation on the impact of the tunnel on groundwater levels. So the Land and Environment Court did issue a permit, but then the permit was appealed by owners of houses which could be impacted by the tunnel. So after the appeal, the permit was retracted by the Land and Environment Court of Appeal. And they did that because there were basically two insufficiencies in the plan. So the first one was that in the geographical scope of the plan, basically there weren't enough details that encompassed all the environmental issues that could happen. So, and also the environmental impact statement lacked in describing all the possible issues and only focused on groundwater, when there's also going to be issues like considering noise pollution and water pollution. So later, the Transport Administration reapplied with improvements in the environmental impact statement and was approved. And this railway is going to probably open between 2033 and 2035. Some pros and cons of this system. Cons, basically, if you look at other environmental impact assessments, you can see that because over the years, environmental laws in Sweden have changed, the new prerequisites kind of lack what the old ones used to require. Since the environmental code basically absorbed 15 other acts, a couple of things changed within the legislation. So this results in some misunderstandings, leading to issues in listing all the alternatives possible and all the possible environmental issues which could result due to the project. And basically what happens in the end is projects are being accepted too easily with insufficient points in their environmental impact statements, as well as in their environmental impact assessments with special regards to alternatives. So they're just not really offering all the alternatives, not really listing them. Some pros to this system, though, are that the cases are transparent and are available to the public, so anyone can really search them up and look at them. And public consultation is included, so the word of the people is taken pretty seriously. Fines are given out for non-compliance, resulting in more cooperation from companies. And companies are also, they need to give monthly and yearly reports to the authorities so that they can be kept in check. Thanks for listening.